Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Most people don't know the truth about what happened to him at 78. And the moment you hear this, it will stay with you forever. Because his story is not just about basketball, it's about life, legacy, and the quiet battles even legends must face. At 78 years old, Kareem found himself reflecting on a journey very few humans could ever imagine. A journey filled with towering victories, unimaginable pressure, private struggles, and the weight of being a symbol for millions. The world remembers him as the Skyhook King, the man who stood taller than the game. But what most people don't know is that behind that greatness lived a man who felt time catching up with him faster than he expected. At 78, Kareem began dealing with challenges the public never saw. The slow fading of physical power, the emotional weight of aging, the quiet fear of being forgotten, and the pressure of staying strong for fans who still saw him as invincible. He would wake up some mornings wishing he could step on the court one more time, not to score or break a record, but just to feel the rhythm of the game that shaped his entire life. Friends close to him say he often sat alone, watching old clips of his younger self, a man moving with grace, confidence, and dominance. And sometimes he would smile. Sometimes he would tear up, knowing those moments were gone forever, but grateful for the gift of having lived them. Yet what makes his story so emotional is not the loss of youth, but the strength he carried into his later years. Kareem used his voice to inspire younger players, to push for justice, to fight for health, education, and equality. Even when his body slowed, his mind and heart grew stronger. But the truth is, even legends feel pain. Even icons feel loneliness. Even heroes have moments where they wonder if they did enough. And at 78, Kareem faced all of that with courage. The world saw an NBA legend, but behind the scenes was a man fighting to stay healthy, stay hopeful, and stay connected to a world that moves on quickly. And the moment the public learned what he was really going through, many couldn't hold back tears, because it reminded them that time spares no one, not even the greatest of all time. Kareem's story at 78 is a reminder of resilience, legacy, and the beauty of a life lived with purpose. And when you understand what he has faced, you will never look at him the same way again. Because behind the trophies, behind the records, behind the skyhook, is a man who kept pushing forward even when the world wasn't watching. A man whose greatest battles happened long after he left the court, and a man whose strength at 78 will break your heart and inspire you at the same time. Try not to cry when you see this. And as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar moved deeper into his late 70s, the world slowly began to see what he had been carrying alone for years. Because aging for someone who once stood above everyone else is not simple. And the truth is that Kareem found himself confronting memories that grew heavier with each passing year. He often said that the loudest moments of his life happened when the arena went silent, when the final buzzer rang and he walked back to the locker room alone, hearing only his breath, feeling the weight of greatness on shoulders that were never supposed to hold that much pressure. At 78, those silent moments returned, but differently. Instead of the pressure of winning championships, it became the pressure of holding himself together as his body changed, as illness knocked on his door, as the rush of the game faded into the soft quiet of everyday life. People saw the legend smiling at ceremonies, giving speeches, standing tall as he always had. But what they didn't see were the nights he struggled with pain, the times he looked in the mirror and saw a man who no longer moved like the athlete who rewrote basketball history. And yet, even in the stillness of old age, Kareem remained powerful in ways that didn't require a uniform or a spotlight. He started to share wisdom he once kept private, telling younger athletes that greatness is not measured by points or trophies, but by how you rise when the world forgets you. He spoke softly, but every word came from a heart shaped by triumph and hardship, and those who listened began to understand that the real battles were never on the court. But behind the scenes, Kareem faced something deeper, something he rarely spoke about: the fear of disappearing. For decades, arenas roared his name, cameras followed his every move, and fans treated him like a living monument. But now, at 78, many young fans barely knew his story. Some only recognized him from old clips or mentions in documentaries. Others didn't realize he had once changed the entire game. And that reality hit him harder than anyone knew, because for Kareem, legacy wasn't about being famous. It was about being remembered for the right reasons. He wanted the world to remember compassion, intelligence, activism, courage, not just the skyhook. But some nights, he wondered if it would all fade like dust on an old trophy shelf. That fear grew stronger when he faced health challenges, ones he kept quiet to avoid causing worry. He attended doctor visits in silence, refusing to burden others, telling himself he needed to stay strong. But even the strongest man can feel weak sometimes. And one day, sitting at home surrounded by scrapbooks, faded photos, and handwritten letters from fans across generations, Kareem felt a wave of emotion he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. He realized that no matter how much time passed, the impact he made could never be erased. Not by age, not by illness, not by the world moving on. What mattered was the lives he touched, the players he inspired, the voices he supported, and the young kids who grew up trying to copy the skyhook in dreams of becoming something great. That was when Kareem began writing more, sharing more, speaking more honestly about what aging feels like, what loneliness feels like, what purpose means at 78. And people listened. Millions began to see him not just as a legend, but as a human being, one who had endured grief, pain, love, success, heartbreak, and healing. He talked openly about losing friends, former teammates, and mentors, and each loss took a piece of him that the public never saw. He spoke about standing at funerals, seeing the faces of people who once shared the court, and realizing that the era they built together was fading. He admitted that it scared him, not because he feared death, but because he feared a world where the stories of those men would be forgotten. But then, something beautiful began to happen. Younger generations started rediscovering him, watching clips, reading his essays, hearing his interviews, seeing how he fought for equality long before it was popular, how he stood up when silence was safer, how he used his platform to make the world better. People began thanking him again, acknowledging him again, honoring him again. And that brought a kind of peace Kareem had been searching for quietly. Still, even with that recognition, he carried the truth that life at 78 is fragile. His hands weren't as steady. His steps weren't as strong. His breath wasn't as powerful. And yet, he kept showing up. To events, to charities, to youth programs, to communities that needed hope. He kept smiling, Even when some days the pain made it hard, he kept inspiring. Even when he felt tired, he kept speaking. Even when the world didn't always listen. Because that's who he has always been. A fighter who never needed to raise his voice to lead. And one evening, surrounded by family, Kareem reflected on everything he had been through, and he whispered something that captured the heart of his entire journey. The game was only the beginning. Those words meant everything because they revealed the truth. Basketball made him famous, but what he did after basketball made him unforgettable. And this is why his story at 78 is so emotional. It reminds us that greatness does not end when the cheering stops. It grows in silence, in resilience, in wisdom, in the quiet battles fought alone. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar may be 78, but his spirit remains timeless. And when people learn what he has faced, what he has survived, and what he continues to give to the world, they can't help but feel their hearts break. Not out of sadness, but out of deep respect for a man who remains a giant, not just in height, but in character. And as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar aged gracefully into his 70s, the weight of decades spent as a basketball icon began to reveal itself in ways the public rarely saw. He had conquered courts, broken records, and inspired generations, yet behind the applause and accolades were quiet moments of reflection, loneliness, and the physical toll of a career that demanded everything. Nights spent nursing injuries, years of discipline, and the constant pressure to perform had left marks unseen, a reminder that even legends are human. At home, surrounded by trophies, letters, and memories, Kareem thought about the friendships lost, the teammates who had moved on, and the fleeting nature of fame. He spoke openly about the sacrifices, the private battles with doubt and fatigue, and the emotional burden of maintaining excellence. And yet, even with all the challenges, he remained a source of inspiration, using wisdom and courage to show that true greatness endures long after the cheers fade. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, through years of triumph and relentless dedication, carried hidden burdens, the physical pain, the personal sacrifices, and the moments of doubt the public never saw. His journey was not just about points or titles, but about enduring challenges, preserving legacy, and navigating the complexities of life after basketball, showing a man whose greatness was as much about resilience and wisdom as it was about skill and achievement.